you guys are in for something really special. I sat down with one of my long-term coaching clients and also one of the youngest client, Jenny. We had a raw, powerful, and deeply inspiring conversation about her manifestation journey. I first met Jenny back in 2019. This is right when I just started my coaching career. And at the time, she was emotionally exhausted. She was in debt, she was juggling school during the day, and she was working at night at her family's vegan restaurant, just trying to keep it all together. And she felt completely lost. And the idea of living a dream life or even believing her life could truly change was so far-fetched that she couldn't see how it was going to happen. But despite everything that was going on in her life, she was open, she was willing. It was at a time she was a little bit desperate because she knew something's gotta shift. So she decided to invest in herself and we started working together. And over the past few years, I've watched Jenny transform, not just on the outside, but from deep within. She's manifested everything she once only dreamed of. And now she's living the dream life. But that's pretty real. Manifestation, it's not always rainbow and sunshine. It's not always easy. There were hard days, moments of doubt, worry, and even times when things that she wanted to give up. But what makes Jenny's story so powerful is that she never gave up. She kept going. She did the work. She applied the teachings and she stayed connected to her long-term vision. And she was able to develop her faith and deepen her connection to her spiritual path, even when it seemed challenging at times. And this interview is packed. It's raw, it's real, and it's layered with wisdom. We dive into what manifestation look like in real life, not just in theory or something you read in a book, but what it means to actually live it. So we went over how she turned her breakdown into a breakthrough, her healing and identity shift, and the deepen of her spiritual journey. Plus the money mindset that she had to shift to grow as an entrepreneur. So grab your coffee or tea, get cozy, because this one is worth your time. There's so much to learn from her journey. And if you want to follow Jenny's story, I'll put the link to her earlier transformation videos down in the description below so you can see the full evolution of her journey. Now, let's dive in. All right. Hey, Jenny. Hello,
So
hello. Welcome to my first interview podcast.
thank you, to be the first.
Yes, yes. So you want to share with the audience, tell us a little bit about you, where you're tuning in from?
Okay, well, currently I'm in California. Amy, you're in Dubai, right? So we're a long way, um, a long distance away. Uh, my name is Jenny. I have a few vegan Chinese restaurants, and then that's where I am now. I have a baby. I'm married. Just working on the business, myself, and being a new mom. And I'm honored to have this interview with you, Amy. And I will not be, here today, if it's not for all the progress we've made throughout the years and you being my coach. So here we are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what we're going to get into because you've come a long way. All these things that you shared, Jenny, just now are all your manifestations, right?
Definitely.
Yes, yes. So including the restaurants, including a baby, you have a house, a car, a husband. You forgot to
Yes.
mention
Oh yes, needed that for all this to happen.
just a reminder. But I think the most important thing is how you've evolved throughout the years, how you've shifted, which we're gonna get into. So why don't you take the audience back a few years ago? Because right now people look at you as like, oh, Jenny is so successful, right? But and people think that this is who you've always been, but that's why I want to take the audience a few years ago when maybe when we first met a few years back. Where were you at the time?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like forever ago. And that was what, 8 years now, I
No,
think.
not that long. 6 years,
Like
2019.
2019 I was, oh, you know what? Yes, yes. Thinking back to 8 years was I was 24 at the time. It was such a drastic change in my personal life. A breakup with my ex and then moving back home. That was like a huge shift, which then eventually led me to personal development and then eventually coaching with you, which, we started in 2019. So that was 6 years ago. Yeah. And then it feels like, a different lifetime because at the time, I mean, you always mention every time I say something, profound, you're like, oh, you were just a kid, you were just this little girl. And that's exactly what it was, just a lot of baggages and toxic, energy, not knowing who I am, what I even want in life, and just going through the motions and partying, a lot of drinking, a lot of partying, a lot of, disrespecting, me, my body, and the relationships around me. It was just night and day when you first met me. I remember even now, I had a moment back then after, all the personal development courses I've taken, and I felt like I've taken a lot of like baggages off. And I had a moment at the restaurant. I was like washing dishes actually. I was like, "Oh God, like if someone can just tell me what to do from here, like where to go or what to do, like I'll do whatever it takes. I don't know what to do. If I can just have someone tell me exactly what I need to do, like I'll do it." Like I had that, dialect in my head. And then maybe 1 or 2 weeks later, you reached out to me about your, newly launched coaching program. I was like, yes, I'm in. Whatever you say. And, like after all these years, you still say that I'm your most coachable student because at the time I was so desperate. I have let go of a lot of things and then not knowing what action steps, to take next. And it was just um, very open and desperate for change and then making things happen. And then all that contribute to, all these years later. And then here we are.
Yes, yes, and I want to actually just pause and mention about that, Jenny, is that you see the reason why you are so coachable and you still are, I think a lot contributed to the fact that you were faced with challenges. It's kind of like I don't know what else to do, right? I think it was because of that, and actually even till now, I still talk to my other coaching clients that sometimes because our lives are good,
Yeah.
we have a good because of that, we don't do a lot of things that we're supposed to do. But at the time, you were so desperate, you're like, okay, I'll do anything, right? Because you were like at that rock bottom moment. So I think it's
Oh,
important for the listener to know
yeah.
that wherever you're at, maybe you've hit your rock bottom and you feel like, oh my God, like everything is crumbling down. But I just want to share that when that happens, like there's hope, right? And the saying is that once you hit rock bottom, there's nowhere to go but up. I think
Hmm.
that's really encouraging for the listeners and for you sharing.
It was needed. Everything needed to crumble and fall apart before any rebuild could happen. It was absolutely needed. If everything stayed the same, then everything stayed the same. At the time at 24, even though, when people hear like, oh, at 24, what kind of rock bottom can you possibly hit? Like your life just started, right? Like you don't even know how hard life is yet. But at that point, it's like I was pretty okay being a 24-year-old, like I was almost making six figures at 24. And my relationship was awesome. We were in this like luxurious apartment. We're like trying to get married, and it was just I remember people telling us or me that when they see us on the street, we're like this like movie couple, right? This beautiful movie couple that everybody's like jealous of. And then only I knew it was just all looks. Like all of it was almost all fake because, like internally there was a lot of work to be done between, both of us and not knowing who I was. And even though what seems to be success at such a young age, all of that definitely vanished within like a few months. And I had to like move back home, like moving out of the house at like 19, 20-ish, just having my own apartment, living on my own, and then move back home. And I had like one of my girlfriends like move me out of my ex's apartment like in an hour because it was that dramatic. So like all of that had to happen definitely for me to reevaluate and start from a healthy point of rebuild. Like from there, everything that was rebuilt, it was actually from a healthy point versus like toxic or uh how do you say it? Like almost like a superficial success or superficial growth. Sometimes that kind of happens and you feel like you are growing, you are achieving your goals, but it's almost superficial because, there's something lacking, and disaligned, inside.
Yes, and I didn't know that story about yours, but I think that's why we have, I feel like so our stories really align, Jenny, because I also had to move out of my place, I mean, not my place, but with my ex-boyfriend within an hour.
It's so dramatic.
Yeah, my son
He's
told
like,
me, and
I'm leaving. By the time I come home, you gotta be out of here.
yeah, and I don't think we've ever shared that, and I never really shared that publicly, but I just think that I think this is why you and I share this with you. When I saw you, the younger you, I saw it myself in you. Because when I was young, when you were young, we're both very defensive, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
we're trying to put up a strong front, but I know deep down inside we were hurting. And that's when you talk about we had a lot of baggages and a lot of healing to do, which we're gonna get into that because it's a lot. Like part of the personal development. I think people usually don't talk about. I don't want to say the dark side, but I do want to say it's the shadow work of personal development. It's not always so glamorous, right? Like, okay, becoming the best version of yourself, right?
Oh, you gotta find the worst version to see the best version. Oh no, it's absolutely dark and, embarrassing and honesty, like looking at yourself and your ego from like, such honest and vulnerable point of view.
Yes, yes. And I think it had to get to that point. It's like, okay, and like you said, you have to face it and have that acceptance. Like this is me, right? I'm
Mhm,
not resisting this is as part of me. No, this is who I am. And I still love myself completely for who I am. And yet I still want to grow and be a better person.
mhm.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, so take us back to at the in the at during that time, where were you? I think even though you own the restaurant or you're working in the restaurant, the restaurant your parents.
I was at such a weird place in life. Not knowing what to do or what I wanted to do. So my family has opened up a vegan restaurant and they asked me for my help, which I was willing to do. And then on my own, I was working in a bakery because that's what I majored in originally. So I was working full time at a bakery, and then after that, I would go help out in the restaurant, which, with family business, you can't just help out for a shift, like you stay until things are done. So I would do full time at the restaurant and then be pretty much full time. I mean, sorry, full time at the bakery and then pretty much full time at the restaurant. And then on top of that, because I was so empty inside, I needed like more projects to fill in my time and then to make something of myself. So I went back to school. So I went back online. I took online classes to get my bachelor's. So I was in school full time. So just trying to fill in the void and my time, and then in between the restaurant and going to the bakery at 5 in the morning, I would go party and drink the 2 hours, in between, and I will have like basically no sleep, but anything it takes, right? To not to be home, because I, just moved back with my family to not to be by myself, not to be alone with my thoughts, to not to feel sorry for myself and look, glamorous going out and like look at me having it, together, living my best life, even though it's after a relationship. So that's where I was. And with the restaurant, eventually, after all the coaching and all the personal development, I realized that's something I wanted to invest myself and my time in and take it seriously. So from there, we opened our second location, still vegan Chinese restaurant at Roland Heights, and then that was almost a baby of mine because I never cared about the restaurant business before that. And then I remember during our coaching, you told me that create your own environment, right? Like create this environment that you want to be a part of. And then I just manifested and visualized how I want the roller restaurant to look like. And eventually, when on grand opening, when you stepped in, you're like, oh, this is so you. Like I don't know what it is, but just walking in here, it feels so you. So it was almost like
Let's hold up a bit. So this this is because I really wanted people to know that like you really manifested that into fruition. So at the time you were just working in the business, right? Like as a
yes.
server, if you will, right? You were
Pretty
not
much as a server, I did a little bit of admin, the things that the family needed, because there's like a language barrier. So just whatever needs to be done, but there was no decision making. So like it was almost like, hey mom, this is the problem. I have these solutions. What do you want to do? And ultimately it's her deciding on, whether to take this loan or to, not, or to buy this product or not. So it was more like, these are the options that we have, and whatever you want to do, whether you make a good decision or not, like I have nothing to do with it because you're responsible for your business.
right, right. And then at the time, our first goal, the first goal when we first got into the coaching, your first goal, right? It was to have another store,
Like
yeah,
mine, something that feels like mine. Yes.
like yours, that where it's a very different vibe,
Hmm.
right? That you wanted. And at the time, it seemed so out of reach, right? Because again, this is like you were just working in the business. You were not like kind of owner, part owner, or anything like that. So it was
Yeah.
so such a far stretch. Yeah. And it
Yeah,
was
I mean, the
doing
interesting part was because I didn't like how the working environment was at the Chino store. And then, I was visualizing how the store could be, you know, more than like a family business, right? Like better decor, better like fixtures and all of that. So I was just only imagining how that store would transform, but everything in my imagination actually came into, reality. But little did you know, how the universe works is it became a brand new store. It wasn't transforming the Chino store. It was actually a brand new store that had appeared, and then it looked exactly, how I imagined it, which is just how manifestation works, right? You can't doesn't matter the how, right? You just have
yes,
your
yes.
goals there, and then it'll happen.
You had the goal, and at the time it was a fantasy goal, right? At the time you're like, oh, how is this gonna happen? And
Yep.
then so it was during when you acquired the second restaurant, it was also during the pandemic. Let's talk about how that worked out.
Definitely my first and most scariest hair barrier of of taking the store during the pandemic. I mean, logically, part of the contribution was because the store was empty, so we didn't have to, purchase it. So, that makes sense from a logical point of view. But with everything that was happening during COVID, right, like the fear of the unknown, we don't even know if we're gonna live another day, let alone, opening like a brand new business. And then at that point, I was on this
During that time, business was shutting down, not opening up.
business was definitely shutting down. People were definitely complaining, and then we have like people trying to sign petitions to overthrow the California governor. It was crazy times, and all the rallies and like the break-ins and all that. So yeah, but personally, I was on this almost um growth or like personal development high that none of that mattered, right? External environment, none of that mattered, and I was successfully able to convince my family, like basically, we got to do this, go big or go home. or they're just so meant for us because if it weren't for COVID, the store won't shut down. We will never be able to afford to buy this place. Now that it's empty, we can just walk right in. We have all of these like reasoning that I presented, and then eventually I'm grateful for my family that they trusted me and trusted the process, and we were able to open a brand new store, brand new remodeling, inside, like back of the house, front of the house, everything brand new, during COVID. Like we signed the lease. COVID was what, March-ish 2020. We signed lease in June and we opened October of
Yeah,
2020. Yeah.
that was your first goal coming into fruition. And like you said, when I first stepped into it, I'm like, this is the vision I had that you shared with me, like of your like the style that looked like yours, and then like with the merchandise, because that's
Yeah.
also coming a manifestation is merchandise.
Yeah. Yeah. At the time, yeah, it seems like such like no big deal now, but at the time I don't know. It was such a big deal at the time, like like to get merch for our brand and having this decor. Actually, this store we've made profit, throughout COVID with all of our stores, actually, to the point where we were unable to qualify for any government aid. Government aid was handing out for small business, right? We made so much profit that we basically didn't qualify for any of that. Yeah, like when
That's
people
so
were losing money, when people were, shutting down, like yeah, we definitely, stayed open, did everything possible. Every day was a new thing that we're trying out. Like today we have lunch boxes, tomorrow we have patio seating, and then, like the next day we have like buy three, get two free, or whatever it took to stay open, and definitely made profit. And that was like our best year. COVID was our best year, actually, in sales.
it's just so crazy, and it goes to saying that you really create your economy. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what the market is doing, because most people are just looking at the market, but you, because you're the creator, right? And let's talk about during that time and talk about your personal life. What was happening in your personal life at the time?
Um, I After, personal development and coaching, I really made a commitment to myself to um focus on myself and my growth. So, I stopped online dating, I deleted all the apps, and then, when people say like, "Oh, I have this friend, you want to meet?" I'm like, "No, no, no." I just want to focus on, one thing at a time, and right now it's myself. And eventually, it came to a point where, one of the goals were manifesting a partner. And then I had all these bubbles, right? You write down your perfect person, and I had all these bubbles. It was a lot. It was a lot of bubbles, and it was very detailed. And then you told me to take a picture and save it as my phone screen, which I did. And then eventually this person, not to say showed up, like he was always there. I just was never in the right mind to see him for who he is and his values and characteristics, which is what I wanted. So before that, because I don't want to say damaged, but because, the things that I was looking for were more superficial, and, the values were different. So I didn't see him as this person of, um, value. And then after I worked on myself and, have let go of those baggages and realized, a lot of it was, the baggage, the hurt, the self-defense mechanism and the ego. So after all of that, and then looking at the same person in a different light, it's like, oh, you have such, like values that I can't find, just in anybody. And then here we are. He was, always been a friend throughout this whole time, throughout my growth. And I mean, he's seen who I was when I first met him, like this almost stuck up, bitchy person. And then eventually, and he saw, like, truthfully who I was. So here you are. And then when things aligned, it just happens really fast, right? Like we were friends for a couple years, and then when I saw everything or when I realized everything, we started dating. I think it was maybe a year. We got married and then we got a house. Well, we got a house first and then we got married and then, all that just feels like sometimes I still tell him now, it's like, we've only been married for 3 years and it feels like we've been doing life like forever. Right? Like we've accomplished so much, even though it's like little things every day. And then looking back, like there was so much accomplished just within the last 3 years of, our relationship. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was another big manifestation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like you see, like at the time you wanted to work on yourself, and then you also wanted to call in a partner, which, first thing is you got to get clear on who you want to attract because we don't attract what we want, we actually attract who we are. So
Mm,
you had to work on yourself, right? And then, like you said, letting go of all the limiting beliefs and maybe not worthy or ego, or whatever you had to let go of. And then oh, all of a sudden you shifted your perception. And even though the person has always been there, but then you were
right.
at a different. So then, yeah, so then you guys got married and I got a house, and then now you have a baby girl. Yeah.
Yes. That looks exactly like my husband.
That's another manifestation, right?
Yeah.
But it's like I just want to say, like, to be able to see you from before till now and see what you manifested, like it's truly amazing. And it's not just the material things that say, but
Yeah.
it's the growth in you that
Yeah.
I yeah.
Yeah.
um
And to have such like healthy relationships, with myself, with my partner, with my family, with my friends, like really cutting off and aligning everything, having such like healthy relationships. I never thought that was possible. I actually thought it was impossible. Like I thought part of life was to have toxic relationships. Nothing is perfect. Like there's got to be something that this person is gonna like, like mess you up for. Like I thought that was normal. And not just manifesting, like you said, the material things, but actually like a truthful and healthy and loving relationship and being in a happy marriage that supports each other and then bring like a baby to life. And just never thought, I thought that was just movie script. Like no way you'll have someone that's that you're compatible with, that you're happy with, and a child born out of love. Like I thought that was just all fantasy and movie. And to be able to be at this point, I mean, it definitely took a lot of, hard work along the way, like tough conversations and struggles and, being honest with each other and our faults. It didn't come easy, but it's part of, what I imagined, my relationship to be. And, I'm grateful that, it's part of everything right now.
Absolutely. And Jenny, like I've been telling you this, like you made this happen. It didn't happen by luck, right? Because some people will look at you from the outside like, oh, Jenny, right? You're so lucky. Everything is working out for you, right? But I do want to like let's talk about your relationship with your family members, right?
Mhm.
Like because part of that because you work in the family business and there were a lot of conflicts in the beginning, and part of your goal was also to have harmony. Let's talk a little bit
Yes.
about in the family. Yeah.
Yes, so actually, I have all my goal cards. My my first goal card was to have a harmonious working environment because there was always fights, either between the family or with the staff. It was just chaos all the time, everywhere. And we've definitely achieved that. And some things cannot be worked on just with communication, right? Like you really need to set the intention and almost as if like sending like light and energy, towards each other, and eventually reach this point where there is a healthy communication. And obviously, no family is perfect. Like it's not to sugarcoat everything. It's definitely hard communicating with your family because there's all these like resentments and baggages, throughout time, and with your family. On top of that, having a business relationship where you actually work together on the daily is absolutely hard. But I think at the end of the day, I think everybody had um, understood and grew in a way that we can support and understand each other. And I can say now, I used to have, employee issues, hiring issues, right? Family communication issues, and all of that was chaos. And now I feel like throughout all the stores, between management and my family and all the staff, everybody is supportive. Everybody is happy at work. They're actually grateful for this job, and it's easy to communicate with everyone. And this is not something you can just work on and then because I mean, a lot of people, right? Like if you have your own business or if you're in some kind of HR, the person you interviewed is not going to be the person that comes to work the next day. So, it takes a lot of setting the right intentions and energy and allowing, what is appropriate and then letting go what's not appropriate to eventually establish this atmosphere of healthy, relationship amongst, the workforce.
Yeah, and also during the time, I remember you used to work 7 days a week because at
Oh,
restaurants they open, and one
yeah.
of your goals at the time was to only have 2 days off, right? I remember,
Oh, yeah, that was such like, oh my gosh, like how is that possible?
right? At the time, like you were working, and this is I just want to put into perspective and context for the audience is that again, doesn't matter where you are right now. At the moment, you may feel stuck. You may feel like this is so far reach because at the time it was so far reach for you. Like you were like, oh, if I could just have 2 days off, that would be amazing because you used to work 7 days. And then guess what happened? Slowly you shifted. You slowly moved yourself out of the restaurant, and eventually you work how many days a week?
Well, I mean, I have weeks where I'm not working at all. I mean, especially now, right, with a baby, like I'm pretty full-time mom mode right now. Some weeks, when there are things to do, I'm still out there 6, 7 days, and then some weeks when everything is calm, like I'm not really working at all. But from the progression from 7 days, I remember like, you telling me what will make you happy, right? I was like, oh, if I can have just 2 days off, but that's impossible. There's no way, not with my family. Like how can I have 2 days off when all of my family is working 7 days? Like that's impossible. Eventually, the progression was yeah, 2 days off, and then for a minute it was 3 days off, and then eventually I was able to step out of operations altogether, and then just being on the back end and doing admin work. Uh, but that's not the best part. It's not like I got what I wanted and then screw the rest of you. Everybody got, 2 days off. Like right now, like my uncle being the head chef, he has 2 to 3 days off depending on the workflow. My aunt, she just really likes to work, even though she could have 3 days off. She just hangs out at the restaurant. So, I mean that's how she chooses to spend her off days. And my mom is pretty much retired. Like she disappeared from the restaurant. So,
That's
like, yeah, at that time, everybody was doing 7 days, and it was absolutely impossible to even talk about having a day off. It was almost like there was like a shame around it.
so crazy, Jenny. Like when you work on yourself, not only you influence you, like I mean, obviously you're you, but you influence also the people around you, your immediate family, your business, right? And at the time, you wanted to go into business development, I remember, which why don't we talk about that, about what happened next with the other stores that you manifested?
Uh, so from there, like I wanted to be out of operations and wanted to do more like opening new stores. Like I felt like that was what I was more interested in, and that's what gave me more drive versus being in the restaurant day in and day out. I my personality, I'm more um like I get bored easily, so just going into the restaurant every single day doing the same thing, like I can get bored of it really fast. So I need like a new project. I like to open new stores. I like to like problem solve. Um And just how timing works and the universe does wonders. You introduced me to my marketing company at the time to market the first two restaurants. And he said one thing to me, after, we signed contract and, he was able to market the restaurant. I remember like I sent him like a photo of a Friday night of the Chino store completely packed, like full house Friday night, which we've never had on a Friday night before. I sent him a photo. This was like maybe 2, 3 weeks after his marketing campaign went out. I was like, I don't know what you guys did, but it's working. I've never seen this amount of people on a Friday night before. So which validates, he knows what he's doing, a great marketing company, right? And then he had our food and he was like, I'm not even vegan. This food is really good. Like you guys have really good recipe. I was like, yeah, I know. And then he said one thing to me. He was like, Jenny, if you want to do something on your own, let me know. I was like, what do you mean by that? And he planted the seed, like, maybe we can franchise, maybe we can do like a fast casual concept. But when you wanted something else, you just let me know. And then at the time I wasn't even thinking about franchising because I had this um false, I guess, interpretation of franchising where the franchisees could ruin the brand, right? So I never consider that. And then he just planted that seed, and then eventually, it's not even like I was doing the research. It was like the research just came to me. Like somebody is talking about, the benefits of franchising. Some article just shows up about, like the values and then like the things, and it just happened. And we saw the Loma Linda store. At first we wanted to be the same concept as House of Fortune, but it was too small for that concept, so we had let it go. And then this whole franchising came up, and this whole, fast casual thing had, you know, sprouted in my brain. I was like, hey, how come we don't do that? Like, that's the perfect size and decor for a fast casual, um, maybe like franchisable location. And then I called, my now marketing partner. I'm like, hey, I think I found a store. Can you come check it out? And then, which he did. And then we sat down. I think within a couple hours, we came up with the brand, the logo, the menu. Well, the menu with my family, we came up with that. But yeah, in one afternoon, um, the brand Vegan District was born, and then we opened the store in 30 days. Oh, actually, in 60 days. 30 days was escrow, and then another 30 days to open the store, which was a record for both of us. I've never done that before with Roland because it was like a brand new store. We had to wait, 3, 4 months for remodeling to be done. This was like a turnover, getting all the licensings, and he had to put all the menus and website, everything together within 60 days, which funding was another side story that when escrow opened, I had no funding to close escrow. But
Yeah.
part of it was like, we just need to do what we need to do, and then solutions will come. And 2 days before escrow closed, all the funding came in, whether it was talk about being resourceful, right? Whether it was loans, uh, families helping out, friends, like borrowing, credit card, whatever it may be. 2 days before uh, escrow was supposed to close, we got all the funding come out, and then escrow closed.
I think this is the perfect segue to get into what we wanted to talk about. Part of it, this is your mindset as an entrepreneur and being resourceful. And I remember at the time, it was, I would say at the time, one of the biggest challenges that you had to go through. And I still remember having this conversation with you. I said, and this is where it was opportunity to get into the relationship, talking about relationship with universe or God or higher power, whatever, we want to call it. And also talking about faith.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
At the time, like you mentioned, the escrow was open, but you didn't have the resource, the money wasn't there. Right. So let's talk a little
We
bit
dive
about your
into what
mindset as an
manifestation
entrepreneur, because
look
it's very
like in real
different from a
life,
mindset
not
of
just in
entrepreneur versus
theory
mindset
or
of a
something you read in a
employee
book,
mindset when it comes
but
to
what
money,
it means
especially.
to actually live it.
Right. I think a lot of times is we don't want to make any moves unless we have the tools or, the funds,
How?
right? Yeah, and it's scary. Like, why would you, open escrow without the funds? Like, how embarrassing if you fall out of escrow. Why would we do all this and then lose your deposit? But that wasn't really on my mind. It was really I wanted the store. It was a great location. We wanted to make it happen. So the how or the focus was really on making it happen. Falling out of escrow was never like, even though at the time, definitely like my relationship with the universe and faith was very minor. But at that time, even I didn't imagine for a second that we will fall out of escrow. Like it wouldn't be successful. I just thought like everything will happen, it'll come, And I remember afterwards, when everything settled, we had a coaching call, right? And I told you it was just such perfect divine timing. It happened the moment it needed to happen, which validates and solidifies everything that we're doing, that this is the right move. Like this is what we're supposed to do. Because if not, it will not have happened. And the ways that it had happened, like, is out of my
Yeah,
human imagination. Yeah.
right. You can imagine how it's going to happen, right? But then that's the part that you had to surrender because you couldn't know how anyway,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you see, that's why mindset is so important because you just mentioned, Jenny, like during that time, even though it was difficult, even though in the physical world you didn't have the money, but you didn't, what happens with a lot of people is they think about, oh, what if, right? And then they go into the downward spiral of using their imagination in the wrong way of what if this doesn't work out? What if I don't have the money? But your mind, you didn't even think about it, right?
Mhm.
You didn't even
Mhm.
allow yourself to go there.
Right. And then, I remember my mom, she'd ask me, she was like, what happens if we don't get the money? I was like, well, then maybe that's, what's meant to be. We just do our best, which I believe will happen. But if it absolutely do not happen, then we'll just go with that. Then that's what, the universe wants us to do, to not have the store. So if, a lot of it was, I did my action steps, and then the rest, the results, is up to, the universe or God. And if this is the right path, then, we will succeed. Um, but yeah, that was.
I want to talk about that because a lot of people get confused, especially in the manifestation world. It's like, okay, then, if it's meant to happen, then I'm just going to sit there and we just wait for it to happen, right? But that's not how it works. You got to have a goal. You got to set the intention. You got to do the action, yes, right? But you got to meet universe halfway, right? So you're going to, like you said, put in the effort. And then the rest is surrendering and letting the universe take its course. If it's meant to happen, it's meant to happen. If it doesn't, okay, then maybe it's not. So we're not attached to the outcome, but doesn't mean we're detaching from the goal completely, right?
It was almost like my first taste of this faith
Yes.
and relationship with the universe. And because it was successful, and it was, I felt this high of achieving, and everything from there just kind of like took off. Like it was just like everything is like a roller coaster, up and down. But from that point on, it was almost like, it cannot go uh to any other direction but up. That's what I felt like at the time. Like we're just gonna take off from here. Everything just flows. We're gonna be so successful. Like I can just see, money coming in, or this lifestyle that we've always manifested, within reach, because numbers were really good. And it was just one thing after another. We had set up the store, launch the store, and then we have our FDD for franchising. And then a year later, we found another store. And then with that store, again, faith was tested a little bit, but ultimately, we still succeeded and, achieved our goal. And that store was opened, in 30 days instead of 60. So another high where we felt like, oh, we are invincible, like, success is right there. Um, and here we are today.
Yes. So going back to what you were saying, Jenny, was that so after that first so-called challenge and your first experience with just the surface about what faith is, and then after that you were on a high, like you mentioned, and then you manifested another store, and that was just right. Like it was so easy. It came so easy.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. The second store, I mean, I don't yeah, it was definitely it was a manifestation because, we had a coaching call. You're like, well, what would you like to happen this year? I was like, oh, another store. And then this is like November. And I'm like, oh yeah, another store. And then we found that store in December. And we opened within 30 days. I think we opened right before Christmas, and then we took the Christmas week off, and then yeah, grand opening was January. Yeah, I mean, I remember like going in there. Oh, funny side story. I remember going in there and painting the walls, and at the time I was 2 months pregnant, and I didn't want to tell anybody except for my husband because I didn't want people to tell me that I can't have it all. Um, I can't be pregnant and launch a new store at the same time. I was always been a firm believer of I can't have it all. As long as you want it, you can have it all. So I wanted the baby and I wanted the new store. So I didn't tell anybody. And I remember I was in there with my husband and my partner, which he didn't know. We're painting walls on our own. And then after a whole day of painting the walls, I was like, shoot, I don't think I'm supposed to be sniffing this all day. Like I forgot, like didn't matter, like it was mind over matter. And then fast forward after we had opened and grand opened, and I'm at like 3 months now, right? So I told my partner, my business partner, I was like, oh, just to let you know, I'm actually pregnant. She was like, what? He was like, "What do you mean? Like, you've been lying to me this whole time? Like, I've seen you so many times throughout this, 3 months, and you've been just lying to me? Like, I feel like I have trust issues now with you." I was like, I didn't want anything to jeopardize anything, like I wanted the new store and I wanted a family. And this was just the timing. And I wanted to prove to you I can do both. It's not like, now that I'm pregnant or now that I'm a mom, like I have to take a step back from business or people think happens, right? Like, oh, you can't be a full-time mom, you can't be a full-time, entrepreneur or whatever. I wanted to prove that I can until, things happen where, I needed to make a choice. But at that time, I feel like I could do both, which I did. And he was like, that's crazy because if you had told me the moment that we signed the lease that you were pregnant, I would have convinced you not to sign the lease because I didn't think it was possible for you to do both. Like I didn't think you could be pregnant and launch a new store um at the same time, which
And,
it was possible.
exactly.
And I was healthy, baby's healthy, I worked out. My diet was healthy and everything, it was great. And I have not only a healthy baby, she's like such an easy baby. Um, she just I have people saying she's a miracle child. Like, oh,
you're like, yes, yes, but I mean, see that, and that's talking about how now it really seems and feels easy, right? So you have people coming up to you and say, "You're so lucky, Jenny," right? But and here's the thing is that you worked hard on it. It wasn't like you were born like so lucky because like I know it feels like a long time because it feels like past life, and I like to call it past life because it feels like a totally different life, right? Like the old version, same thing with me, and then the new version. Like you worked on it, you work hard on yourself, right? You worked on your belief, you work on your mindset, you work on your faith. Like it doesn't just happen by accident.
yeah. I mean, a lot happens and a lot of it was being tested. And yeah, definitely everything, the outsider sees, right? Like, oh, you're so lucky, you have your dream business, your family, your husband. Oh, your husband is so perfect. Your baby is so perfect. Like, how come you get to be so lucky? I'm like, oh, like I just say thank you. I'm blessed. But yeah, it was definitely a lot of hard work. I was working out 2, 3 times a day, when I was pregnant and going to work, 4 or 5 days a week because it was a new store. I needed to be there. And yeah, I mean, and and and
Also,
uh, and a lot of it, people are like, how come, you don't have morning sickness? How come, your feet are not swollen? I'm like, well, I'm taking all my supplements. I am, like working out, I'm drinking my water, like nothing fell short, right? And it was such like a critical time where I needed all things to be perfect, even, like mentally and physically. It was a lot of hard work, like, waking up and putting in all that effort and then making things work. Yeah. I don't think, I was just so lucky that I had such an easy pregnancy, or I have, only I know. But from, outsiders' point of view, it was more like how come you get to be so lucky?
That's
But
why
I
I
think,
wanted to.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think I just wanted to add, like, if you work on yourself and, it becomes a habit, it then all good things happen to you. Like, almost like, like you get to be lucky. Like, all good things happen to you. Like, I remember, after all of the personal development, I was like, hey, I don't remember the last time I had a bad day. And I remember before that, like every other day was a bad day. Right? Like my car would break down, like my tire would pop, right? Something would happen and I have this unexpected bill, or like, like something crazy, like just crazy things, right? I get into a car accident, or like, all these crazy things. But like, when you like manifest and work on yourself and be in the positive, vibration and frequency, like all good luck, happen to you basically.
Yeah, and that's what we're gonna get into. So you mentioned before it was like things breaking down and bills, and now, Jenny, you get checks in the mail unexpectedly, right? Talk about that, okay?
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to talk about it because, the slight mention of it, to my friends, and they're like, "What? I want to check for, this X amount of money." Like, what? I was like, "Yeah, anyways, that was not the point." Like, but yeah,
Most
like,
people would not understand.
no, like, I would get like free coffee, right? Like you would find your parking right in front of the store because you're in a hurry, or like I forgot to check out an item and the clerk just say, "Take it." It's fine. Like things just, good things just happen to you. Because you attract all these positive things, and some people will call it luck, but it's really attracting
But
and
also, I want to mention that, okay, now people are hearing like you, like, oh yeah, of course, like now good things happen to you. It doesn't mean you don't have challenges. As a matter of fact, when you were
challenges
going
are even harder. The challenges are even harder.
when you were going through challenges, that's actually the time when, and this is the thing that comes down to coaching. Like you've been my longest student ever since I started coaching. You started coaching with me, right?
Yeah.
But the why, some people fall off and, graduate, that's fine. But why don't we talk about that? Like, for example, why are you still in coaching? Why?
No, I think it's almost like personal training. Do you know how to work out? Yes. You know how to deadlift? Yes. Have you been doing it for years? Yes. Um, but sometimes your form will go out of shape and you don't realize it. It takes another person to see it and then correct it. And maybe that happens like once in every 3 months. However, having this personal trainer there with you for every session, they're able to catch this, when it happens, and then to realign you to, good form. And I think coaching is almost the same thing. We have our coaching calls every 2 weeks, right? And sometimes it's almost just like, oh, we're just chatting about life. But when things actually do happen, or my mindset is shifted either positive or negative way, you're able to catch it, and then just a little bit of a tweak, then I'm back on track. Versus, oh, I've known it all, which it's been a long time. Like I have a lot of the concept, but if I stop this coaching with you, then it'll kind of just go derail a little bit and a little bit further, and then it'll take a lot more effort to come back on track, which we tried, right? Like after the second store was open, I think I stopped for a year, and I feel like, oh, I need to like tighten things up. And then that's how, I came back, and then I just felt like I can't leave after that.
But I because like we are continuous expanding and we're living life actually, Jenny. I think this is really what it is, because you're not gonna stop. Like even though again you've manifested a lot of things, but then there's always the next level, next step. Like what else is next, right? And challenges are definitely part of it, right? And even though we think we understand, for example, now I think you're at a different stage of getting into even deeper spirituality, right? Having more faith and connection with God, higher power, right? That's where you're heading. So it never ends, truly.
No, I never thought all the challenges I'm facing right now, I never thought it would happen because, I was on this high of, things happening, manifesting whatever I want. I get it, like things were so easy and never thought, it would take a turn. And, the things that I'm working on right now, definitely is a different level of, challenges, which draws, more out of me than I thought I had.
Yeah, but also it gets you closer to universe, God, right? This thing that, and especially because how the way you were brought up, Jenny, is you want to share a little bit about what you thought spirituality, right? God, higher power, and then you were able to learn different things. Yeah, if you want to share.
I mean, I've always believed in it. I was always religious, or even spiritual. I thought I had, I didn't know what a connection was. So I thought I had a connection with, um, religion. Um, and growing up in such a religious, I guess, household, my family is almost, there's some Buddhist practices. So yeah, I always believed in, spirituality. I was always almost like interested in it too. Um, but the challenges that I am faced right now, I never thought those challenges would lead me to a deeper spiritual connection with, God and or the universe. Um, which I never thought I had an issue. I always thought I was connected. That was never a checkpoint on my list. I wanted to work on myself. I wanted to work on uh, my career. I wanted to work on my relationship with my family. I wanted to, I had a whole list of things I wanted to perfect, and spirituality or connectiveness with the one was never a part of that because I thought that's my strong suit. I had that checked off. Um, which, just
Until
until, and I think everything had to happen in this order for me to reach this point to understand what I'm going through right now. Because without working on myself, without working on the 3D stuff, none of this would make sense. And you have to build yourself up, right? Like to success and then fall apart to then and to crumble and understand, the lesson behind that, which, now really, like, I never thought I could be this, like, connected where, and part of the homework, right, as the coach, you will give us like, write gratitude, right? Pray at night or meditate, visualize. Like all this is the things that we need to be daily, doing. And I'm able to do it now like instantly throughout throughout the day. Like I would be cooking for my baby, like prepping her food, and I would just have a thought of like gratefulness, and not just surface level, like, oh, like thank God for this good weather, or like thank God for my daughter, like just like this intense feeling of gratefulness where instantly I'll like tear up a little bit, and I'll have like a moment with her and then move on, to my day. And just that, I guess, level of like connectiveness um is very different, and then that definitely needed a lot of disciplines on the work and practice to reach that.
absolutely, absolutely. And along the way, of course, like there are unknowns and uncertainties, but I think that's also your awareness and connection with the higher realm, let's say your angels, right? When it comes to angel numbers, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned before, I just received checks out of nowhere, and then they'll come in like angel numbers, um, and I look it up, say, oh, this is a good number. I look it up, and it'll be like a really meaningful angel number, and then these checks, it's hard to talk about it because there's no reason behind it, and it's so illogical, but it just happens. It just happens, and I am open to receive even more, and I'm grateful for it, but all of these things are unexplainable, and you can't really know it unless you've done the work and worked through it, because that was not something I was able to understand or thought even remotely thought was possible before all of this, and that had never happened until recently. So I think it's just different levels of, um, I think, cultivation, in a way, like personal growth. Yeah.
Sure, for sure. And like I mentioned before, like people see challenges as something bad, like problems, but challenges actually force you to maybe search out a different way, or like go into a deeper connection, right? With oneself or higher self. And then along the way, I think the angel numbers are just um proof that, hey, you're guided, you're on the right track, and then it's really comforting to know that you are supported, right? That you are not alone, and then it also encourages you to want to deepen even more this connection with this higher power or God, right?
Right. And we just feel very lost, without that connection, and we don't know that feeling until you've actually truly connected, right? Um, so yeah, I mean, like you said, all these challenges are lessons, and I think I think normally, when we see challenges, it's almost like, it's easy to go into this victim mentality, or why has it happened to me, like, oh, what is it that I have to learn now, right? It's almost like, what now? But it's really a blessing, in disguise, that we can't understand at the moment. And and every day I'm just so grateful for these challenges, because it happens for me to elevate myself, and even though in the moment it just feels so hard and you cannot see the end of it, but that's when faith comes in, right? And so everything just all ties in together. And then you always told me, um God must think highly of me, um to give me this challenge or lesson. And sometimes when I see something that's absolutely out of my control, I just kind of like laugh and think like, damn, you think this highly of me. You think I can do this? Well then, like, I better do it.
Yeah,
I
I
didn't think
mean,
I could.
yeah, right. I think so just for the listener to who are listening, is like, doesn't mean, like once you get into personal development, once you get in coaching, every day is rainbow and sunshine. No, it's not, right? Because it's life. There's up and down, it's life. Okay. So, but the thing is that when the life hits, going on the low, it's like, okay, but you have the tools and the support, right? To get you out of it sooner. Right. And then you get back on again, and that's it. Right. So that's why that's where it's so important to continue to do the work. And I always say to you, Jenny, is that like you are very willing to do the work. Maybe because there's no other way, but there's part of you that's like not not content, right? Because a lot of people will like, hey, like they have everything, right? Their career, the relationship. I'm good. I could just be a mom at home and just chill, and I'll be set, right? But no, like more goals, and especially now that you're a mom, like all the things that you're learning, and obviously you want to carry it forward with your daughter and teach her, right? All the things that you've went through. And I think that's where I don't know, maybe that's where for you is that where the um inspiration for you to grow is also your daughter?
Yeah, like I think just divine timing is such a sacred and magical thing because when I was pregnant with her, I just thought like, as everybody would think, right? Like, am I gonna be a good parent? I'm pretty damaged, my upbringing and all of that. Like, we're not like filthy rich, right? Like, what can I give to her? Like, what can I possibly provide for her? Am I qualified, right, to be a good parent? Um, and it was almost like I asked, I asked in a way, in one way or another, to make me a worthy parent almost, to show me some ways, to teach me some things where I could be a good parent or be equipped with the tools to pass on to her, where she could be this healthy and positive contribution to the world, right, being a part of this world. And I think all the challenges that I'm faced right now, because it strengthened my faith with God, it's almost like this is the best gift I could possibly um practice and give to myself. At the same time, if I am not connected in this way, there's no way I can, show her or let her know, right? So it's more than just, providing or teaching her manners, right? Like how to be a good person, or, how to make money. It's really um teaching her or showing her um the purpose of her time on this earth, and her soul, and what she's meant to do here, whichever it may be. I think that was definitely the biggest lesson for me, and I feel like at this point um I am better equipped to be a parent where I won't fail her. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I
Well,
asked for this.
yes, and it's so beautiful to see, Jenny. When we first met, I don't want to say call you a little girl, but to me, you were a little girl at the time who was lost,
Mhm.
right? And but now seeing you evolve and literally just like a butterfly evolving and continue to grow, and now you're growing into a mom, which is like that's definitely a different role, different responsibility, and it's just so beautiful to see your growth. And that's why I wanted to have this interview with you, because I think there's so much that we covered, because this is life. This is not just some theory that you read in a book. No, like this is actually real life manifestation journey and lessons that you've been through. And I think it would help inspire a lot of people to not give up and to see the light, because it's not always so easy and glamorous. No, but I think at the end of the day, right, like just don't give up. Right. And any last words for the listener audience who maybe feel lost, who maybe see like it's so far-fetched, their goals, whatever they're shooting for? Any last words of encouragement for them?
Um, I don't know. I think everybody's on a different journey, and everybody has a different purpose in this lifetime. Um, and I think at the end of the day, the most important part is, we truly understand that, we are one, with the universe, and, we have everything, whether it's abundance or health, or love, we have everything. Yet, um, we need nothing. So just, and then it's all just a journey of and an experience.
That's deep. I didn't expect you to go that deep. I'm like,
But I think it almost makes it easy a little bit. It takes the pressure off, right? If you think about everything, it's just a journey and an experience, whether if it's positive or negative. Obviously we need to have a drive and, goals in life, but I think it takes a lot of the pressure off of ourselves, and, everybody has a different timing and journey, and, that's we're just all here for the experience.
Beautiful. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for this amazing interview. I think well, we'll definitely do some future episodes when maybe down the line, right? This is like I think the third, fourth time we've done this because you've just grown so much and so much to cover. So with that, I want to thank you, Jenny, for coming on and sharing your experience and your journey with the audience. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Thank you for allowing me.